Steve. I'm here today with author, musician, and a man of many talents. I called him a rabble rouser as well. General Bobag. Hi.
I've been called worse.
Steven Magners. So welcome to the show, Stephen. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Billy. Thanks for having me back. I think it must be the third time now I think I've been on.
It's definitely at least the third time.
Oh, before we start, have you got your mug ready?
I was actually going to mention that. Yep, it's all good to go.
Well, I've got this wee one for tonight.
What's this one say?
It's the Grewcast.
What's Grew?
The Grewcast was a professional wrestling podcast that I was a guest on back in, must have been late February, early March.
All right.
And I won an award for being the most controversial guest on season 1. So,
do you know win many awards like that?
It's been known.
Because I think you were quite controversial on the Perth girl's name. I should know her name. Oh God, Rana. Yeah, you were controversial on there as well. So anyway, what was your controversy? What did you say in the podcast?
I basically ripped into a company that I did a lot of work for the time. I think I worked for them off and on for about 10 years. And then I just called them a bunch of shite bags and fucking paedophile enablers and fucking thieving cunts and you name it, I was going them.
Basically, I like people that are just themselves, regardless of the situation. So you speak your mind, and that's what I like about you, basically.
Got to be. Cheers, man. I like the same about yourself.
Well, none of us are perfect. There's the social media thing. Basically, people try to have an image and whatnot, and try to be a certain way in society. Makes people want to give an image of there's something they're not. So that's why I quite like actually doing the live cast, because you can just be yourself and people can take you or leave you. Mostly leave you, but anyway.
I suppose that's what you call it, shoot the shit, isn't it?
Aye. So we brought you on tonight. You kind of suggested it was time for another chat. Is there anything in particular you want to go down? I know I've been talking about Magna Carta and Article 61 in the past couple of weeks. Has that been on your mind at all, or what's on your mind?
Well, I know there's a lot of times there's absolutely fuck all going on in here, But the Magna Carta and the Article 61, I'm not completely sold on it. But for the benefit of anybody that's maybe not familiar with it, do you want to give a wee refresher?
Okay, Mo's actually just joined the call. Hello, Mo. He's an admin for the group Practical Lawful Dissent, and that's basically, I think, somehow I stumbled upon that group and Andy Barlow. And so I've been searching for a while about how to break the contract with the state, with the birth certificate, and how to, do that and not get harassed. So I looked at different things for that. There was a Freeman movement. There was legal name fraud that was out in 2012. All the John Harris stuff. There's a guy, Mark Christopher, Justinian Deception, A Warrior Calls. And they all seem very interesting. But then this Article 61, it comes from basically the barons. King John back in the day, well, it goes back to King Alfred actually. He kind of gathered all the common laws throughout Britain and kind of made it a universal thing, where the monarch, his job is like a job. It's not like lineage by blood. So his job is like to oversee that the constitution, that the common law is upheld, and it has a jury of their peers, which means that it's true democracy. It's not just voting in a box once every 4 years. The jury controls the democracy process. So if there's any statutes that get passed that aren't just for the people, then they don't have to get followed, they get abolished. And that's the idea behind common law. Just laws should be there to benefit people. And so anyway, to go back to the Magna Carta itself, some people say King John was made to sign under duress because he was a bit of a tyrant, and these barons basically went to him. They were ready to actually put the King of France in his place, and that's kind of why he signed it. So some people say it was under duress, but they were just trying to stop what he was doing. But some people would say that they're traitors for doing that, but they just want the French army. They invited them, so that's why they signed it. And then, who are these barons? They were the landowners of the time, so there's a big controversy. Are people able to use that? But in the Magna Carta itself, it's there for the people to be invoked. The Article 61 in particular, if there's a treasonous act and it's proven that the government has went against its people. And then it's been tried to be repealed several times or changed, created by Parliament, But this is the British Constitution. It's based on that. But then 1216, the first one, the Pope tried to change it, and then there's 1297, and there's even a new version, a 2020 version, but it's never been changed by the people. So a lot of people are saying this original Article 61 was invoked because to see when Britain, Edward Heath had already committed treason by taking Britain into Europe, but some people, I think, would petitioned the Baron over the Treaty of Nice, and they warned the Queen that if that was signed, it was a treasonous act, and it went ahead and got signed. So the Barons done their duty, and they invoked Article 61 on March 23rd, 2001. And since then, there's been no legal government. Basically, they're all there illegally because the only constitutional law in effect is Article 61. And the people then, once they understand that, they have to stand under the truth and kind of get the police on side to understand what's actually happening so that they can then take these criminals down who are obviously at a point now trying to implement measures to basically wipe out common law and the British Constitution and all these things. So that's the gist of it.
Mm-hmm. You see, the main reason I'm not 100% sold on it is this whole swearing an oath to the barons. And as you said, you know, the barons of old were the wealthy landowners, but the barons of today,
yeah,
they're the same fuckers that sit in the House of Lords.
Yeah.
And the whole idea about, okay, standing under common law, that's great. We can all stand under common law without an oath to a lord. But my point being, you're trying to say your statutes and the rules of government no longer apply to me. I don't need to contract with the police. I don't need to contract with the courts. Yet to do so, you're swearing an oath to someone who sits, and some people might not be aware that the House of Lords is the highest court in the land. So you're swearing an oath to one court to say that you're not wanting anything to do with another court. To me, it sounds a bit like having a fucking pissing section in a fucking swimming pool, you know what I mean?
Well, ultimately, I go back to like, what is sound, what is words? Every letter is like a magic sigil, you know, every sound we make is interpreted in different ways, and, you know, we have these means of communication, so we're kind of limited with the written word and what we've got, the tools we've got. And this Magna Carta, Article 61, the thing that I see about it is it does actually seem to have a power that other things don't have with regard to getting results.
The reason I think that you get results and failures in equal measure with it is ultimately whether you make your oath or just keep living normally, you're still under the same crown. Just you're either going down one side or the other. So the crown is always at the top when it comes to these things.
I agree to some extent, but basically the thing about the Article 61 is it's not only Article 61, it's the people becoming unified under it. So then we're all basically using that. We're kind of, the balance have sat back since 2001, and it's up to the people to take it and run with it and just demonstrate that we want to uphold the law and the common law and do the right thing. And nobody's above the law. And the Parliament and even the monarchy are there to serve the people. They came first, not them. They're trying to make them above us and wipe out any chance of the common man. You know, we're all created equal under God, and we all should get tried by a jury of our peers. It's not the judge. It should just be like a convener and it's the people themselves. And if one person doesn't feel right in their conscience, it's not just about the facts presented. You know, it's just a whole different way to approach. And also the laws, we should choose the laws that we're governed by as well, each community. So then we'd want to abide by them. And, you know, it's a whole different way of thinking with regard to upholding the law and doing the right thing instead of just being processed for finance, basically, which is what the police officers do rather than the police constable. So I know the swearing to the oath, it's just that's the way to unify us, I think, and that's us making that statement that we're standing under the Article 61, which was written for this particular purpose.
I think the
only evidence of the treason as well in the documentation, you know.
I think the only thing we as human beings in this level of reality have to ever stand under is love. Well, I guess the word love, but I mean, you could say peace, you could say harmony, consciousness, or your man Stephen D. Kelly, he puts it great, service to others.
Yeah, I love that as well. I mean, ultimately, I think if we all just got on the streets tomorrow and stood in love and basically, come on, let's do it. Or, you know, stand outside the Getty for Stephen, because he says, you know, we can't solve the surface until we go under. There's that whole layer to it as well, you know.
Definitely.
Literally. Basically, yeah, but what's it going to take if people are not aware enough to actually do that? Then the ones of us that are awake, going through this process, and actually the more of us that send the papers to the police and courts to say, no, I'm a rebel, but to say, look, I want to stand in the truth, I want to do the right thing. Here's evidence that the so-called leaders are basically have committed treason in the past since Article 61 was invoked, which the Queen actually responded to. She had 40 days to respond to this thing, and the 39th day she responded. And she wouldn't have done that if it didn't have that power. And since then, basically, it's all been they've just tried to continue this charade, and that's why they're trying to lock down more and more to seal up their control before we actually do this. It's like a race against time. Who knows what's actually going on? This could just be a bit player, and we're all getting lost in this thing. I agree to some extent. But if it's only a tool, so if enough of us do it, that may have an effect if we can't get everyone to do it. But I would rather everyone just say enough of this bullshit. Let's get out there and, with love, take this nonsense down and start again and come up with better ideas.
Because I think if we're all standing under love, you'll realise quickly that it's the exact opposite of the way we're experiencing life right now.
Well, we're all fighting this vaccine. We're all fighting the bullshit. I don't want to talk about these things in particular, but you know what I mean. It's just they create the narrative with all this nonsense. And again, Stephen D. Kelly said that circumvent it. Outflank them. So instead of fighting this stuff and talking about it, because that just helps to create that reality. If you look at it from that, perspective of us actual being creator beings, we don't understand their full power. And that's why they need to hypnotize people with the TV and get them programmed so that they project that reality out to help create the world that they envision for them. They don't realize that they're creators in this black magic spell that's going on.
Definitely. I mean, you're talking about the real leaders. I would suggest they were the same sort of demonic forces that are out there. They're the ones leading at the minute, creating this fucking topsy-turvy fucking excuse for a fucking existence that we're having just now.
Well, I certainly don't think Donald Trump and Boris Johnson are leading the free world, so to speak, So, I mean, there's underground, there's ancient beings. Where did we come from? We've always been slaves. Is this our time to basically conquer our masters, so to speak? And because maybe we're more powerful than them, and they have to work so hard to keep us down. So they create all this nonsense, and they're trying to get this lock grid thing so they can be our slaves forever. But are we going to wake up? Is all of us going to wake up? Or, fuck knows. I mean, what is reality? Fucking timelines could split and things like this, because it does seem like you're living in a different universe from other beings. You can tell the same information, so it just bounces off them.
I mean, we can chat a bit about these beings that are underground.
Aye.
We've done so before. I mean, Stephen D. Kelly, he uses the term, the Greys, the reptoids, the Draco, the Anunnaki.
Yeah,
and the ones that are more human. Their name escapes me just now. Pleiadians, aye. But they're all a physical representation of the same thing, which is basically a form of pure evil.
Yep, that's essentially right, yeah.
And I would say that this pure evil was in essence the second ever creation after the building blocks for life. Life and love and harmony came first, then came the evil, which was the opposite, the polar opposite, that was the opposer, the Satan, if you like. And that's always had a hatred for the first creation, and that's why they're trying to hammer it home and be the controllers.
Well, there is definitely, I think, if you want to call them evil, whatever name you attach to this kind of force, it is part of the God. So God somehow created it. It must be serving some purpose, but it does want to usurp God, basically, and get us to worship it instead of God, basically. And the best way, it can't beat God, so it wants to beat God's creation. And that's why the war on humanity has been. That's one way to look at it.
And the war itself, it's not just fought here in the sort of 3D, this dimension or this density, whatever way you want to put it. It's been fought all over different densities. And it's
I was
something
going
I've
to say that. Do you think the duality is just a 3D kind of element to it, and as you move up closer to the source, then surely the duality wouldn't be as much, or does it just only unite when it gets to the source, I guess?
I think it would ultimately unite at the source,
Aye.
but it would lessen on the way up. And I think it'd be interesting to find out how many density levels there are.
Yeah,
I have a funny feeling there's 33,
could
but
be. So
could
it's a
be wrong
number
with
that
that.
pops up fucking 12 times a day.
Yeah.
In reality, it's just me and Emma, we see 33 all the time since, I told her about this number. It's weird how the brain works,
Mhm.
Like, for instance, when my ex-wife, she was pregnant, then all of a sudden you see pregnant women everywhere, and just how we create a reality when you start to notice things like that. Things you focus on, they get more of, because where attention goes, energy flows, and things like that.
See, when was it last week, or the week before, your interview with Stephen D. Kelly, he talked about like a time dilation.
Aye, the
They
time
spaced it
squeeze.
at the like 300 years
It was
worth
100
of.
years into 50 years,
Well, I think these sort of demonic entities from, say, the 4D
right?
exist within a time dilation very similar to what we experience during REM sleep. You know that way you could be lying there sleeping and you get into a dream and you think you're dreaming for hours and hours and
Aye.
hours, and you wake up and it's only been 45 minutes.
Well, it's
You know, I
funny.
think,
It's funny you say that. I was at work today and I got in my car and I had 15 minutes, so I set the alarm 15 minutes. I woke up after 10 and I said, I've got 5 minutes left. And I was so deep in that 5 minutes, it was ridiculous. And then the alarm went off. I was like, fucking hell, where am I? But it
see,
seemed like an eternity in that 5 minutes.
I think that's, see, the time dilation thing, I think feeding on the loosh ties into that somehow. I think it's not just, like sustenance to some of these beings. I think it's also part of what keeps that system in place, if you know what I mean. Taking the blood and the adrenochrome from the 3D into, say, the 4D loosh, that sort of, how would you describe loosh to somebody that's never come
I was,
across that expression before?
I was just going to say, would you like to?
Aye. I thought, well, it's really difficult to put into words for somebody that's never heard it before. It's like, it's kind of like the essence of life itself, for wanting a better way of putting it. It's you and everything about you, and almost part of your very soul, if you know what I mean. But
Your essence.
it's really difficult to get your head round initially, and how the physical is completely interconnected to the non-physical and the spiritual.
Yep. You're just a manifestation of the spiritual, really.
Exactly. Who was it that said that we were just pure energy condensed to a slow vibration?
The one and only Bill Hicks stroke.
That was the boy. Aye. He was some boy, like.
Aye. Well, I don't know. I think in my book, I don't know if you've read that bit, but that's why I started doing comedy, was Bill Hicks. All the conspiracy stuff. I was trying to be a rock star, but I was taking too many drugs to actually play the instrument. But then I thought, Bill Hicks, I could talk about conspiracy theories and try and make them funny, which was a challenge.
Talking about the conspiracy theories, what do you make of these Q and QAnon lot? The new, they must be having a fucking squeaky bum moment at the minute, like.
Well, I was listening to one guy today who's not necessarily a big Q fan, but certainly there's a mindset going around these days that the Trump is going to win this, this Supreme Court thing, and it's all part of the plan. So he's just exposing the media for what they are. He's exposing the fraud. But as I said to Stephen last night, George W. Bush, he stole the 2000 election against Al Gore, and they never put on much of a challenge. I read that book at the time, Michael Moore's Stupid White Men, and that was kind of went to the figures, all that stuff. That was kind of baby level, you have to start off baby steps and this stuff. It must be quite hard for a lot of people when you try and hit them, with reptiles and stuff. I've freaked out a few folk.
Aye.
But anyway, what was I talking about there? What was the question?
That was the Q and the must have a fucking.
Yeah, so basically their whole narrative right now is falling to bits, because they're saying it's all part of the plan, trust the plan. And what happens if the plan fails? See, I think that's part of the plan, basically. And give people that hope. Like they had JFK was a president everyone loved, and then they assassinated them, and just like immediately it's a big, massive psychological damage to the nation that never recovers from.
I loved what Stephen D. Kelly said in your last interview there. He says, get the T-shirt. I trusted the plan and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
That's a classic right there.
That's a fucking money maker, that one. Like.
Oh shit, Emma got on that one before Stephen does. Both Stevens. I'm talking to Emma. I know 4 Stevens: Stephen Walker, Stephen D. Kelly, and Stephen Hamilton, who's helping to publish my book. So every time I say Stephen right now, she's like, "What the fuck going?" So you're Stephen M. Or General Bobag.
Here's another one that kind of freaks people out when they hear it at first, and they just sort of look at you as if you've shot the flare, you know. Shapeshifting.
Oh, aye. Well, I think David Icke helped to ridicule that quite a bit by being so sensationalist about it.
I mean, I've had experience with it.
But how would you describe it? Yeah, that's what I was going to say, basically. Is it like a big changing in a reptile, or is it more subtle than that, or is it just the eyes? Or
well, in my experience there, I was actually sitting at home.
What circumstances was it?
I'll give you the wee story.
Aye.
I was sitting at home at the time with my ex-wife, and we had the police in the living room, man and a woman. And the woman, she's getting right into my ex-wife's face, and she's goading her and goading her and goading her, just trying to get a reaction.
Right.
And we wouldn't give a reaction. And there was, I can only really describe it as almost like a flash. And the eyes went this way.
Aye.
On the policewoman.
Just the eyes?
It was purely just the eyes there. And it was almost kind of hazy, if you know what I mean. It's quite
like an overlap. It wasn't just their eyeballs.
It was like just the eyes itself and a kind of weird, almost haze around the eye area. It's really difficult to explain because it's been my one and only time actually experiencing it right in front of me. And at the time, we just sort of smiled. And it wasn't till the police got up and left, and that's when we sat and went, did you see that?
Aye.
Went, yep.
Both of you seen it?
And it was like, holy fuck.
Aye. That must be scary as shit, man.
At the time, because I had read about them, I knew sort of their existence, but actually having it right there in front of you, you have that wee flutter of fear in you. But it's like, I'm not giving these bastards a fear because that's what they want.
Aye.
You know?
Well, that's what they say, the best way to fight them is with love. They run away from that, which was the point you made at the start, I guess.
Aye.
Yeah, I think basically a lot of this, what's happening right now, is forcing us, humanity, to grow up, basically mature and have emotional intelligence and love, but not be abused, you know, have self-love, but not that. People these days, he loves himself too much, not that kind of stuff, but basically enough dignity to actually stand up and do the right thing, because to not do it right now is like aiding a bit in corruption at the very least.
Aye. There's a hell of a lot of bloody corruption out there anyway, every fucking place. Doesn't matter where you go, it's corrupt as fuck. Not just the likes of your police, your courts, your governments. Simple things like Tesco, the co-op.
Well, they're
all corrupt as fuck.
They wouldn't be making all these changes across the board with all these corporations if they're not in the gang, basically.
That's it.
So the local Scotmid here had a major upgrade, and I heard just as that was happening that that's part of the government, actually. Scotmid shops, so they've got a wee investment going. And, all the small shops are just going to, well, that's their intention, obviously, to the corporations, and then the poor people that are left.
And it's the same with the co-op, and the co-op's ties with the trade unions and different political parties then getting into the government side of things as well. It's one big fucking mess.
Well, there was that Dutch whistleblower guy that used to work with the finance. What was that guy's name? Anyway, if you type in Dutch whistleblower, he'd done quite a few interviews with the satanic stuff, because he was basically saying that, you know, he was getting involved with the finance. It was like the mafia and all these different governments, and he's the one liaison between them all. It's like, hold on a minute, these aren't separate. This is all part of the same criminal organisation. And then they introduced him to a child party, and he couldn't do it because he'd been abused, and that was the line in the sand. And then basically had to wiggle his way out for there.
And that's another thing that a lot of people fail to get their heads around at the start is the level of bloody Satanism,
Oh, aye.
for wanting a better way of putting it. I mean,
I didn't want to particularly come on here and talk about it, but it's fucking real,
It's a thing. It exists. Look, satanic abuse is absolutely everywhere, and it's not just abusing the public in general, which, well, just look at your fucking window now. But the child sex abuse and the whole adrenochrome thing, the ritualistic torture and murder, the black magic, these are all real things. And people look at you, like, as I said, you're maybe just pissing their kettle or something just for fucking mentioning it, But it's a thing, and you need to see what's happening before you can learn how to deal with it.
You have to be willing to look. That's the problem. People still got their head in the sand, because who wants to look at this stuff? I mean, I seen a picture the other day on Facebook of a child that's been abused and battered to hell, and it was, oh my God, it's just so bad.
It's fucking heartbreaking when you see these things.
And then, but the thing is, you've got this Bohemian Grove thing with the 40-foot stone owl, and there's pictures of Nixon and Reagan there before they were actual president, and there's all kind of history with that. That, and enough, people should be asking questions like, why is the news not, they're all at Bohemian Grove this weekend, So, and it's all these leaders of so-called different parties, but it's all just business, or they don't talk business, it's just socialising, blah, blah, blah.
When they're all fucking having a big group wank at the fucking Bilderberg fucking meeting and all that.
Basically. And the Redwood Forest, apparently, at Bilderberg, they all go and piss against the Redwoods, and, it's like a schoolboy, all these kind of college ritual type things, they still do that shit.
Bullshit initiation fucking carry on, aye.
So there's Steve Walker talking about Michael Bernicia with the warrant for Hancock arrest. We'll see what happens with that one. Now,
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, basically. Even if there is a token gesture, some people would say that this is like the Pied Piper trying to lead the true. Because I've no doubt that if you're going to go in the Magna Carta, what did David Robinson, the work that guy done, I've just watched him actually.
That the boy, he died recently, yeah.
I was due to interview him, basically. I was waiting for him to get back to me, and then I just made the banner up, and then I contacted Jackie because she posted a note. They're all admins are having a day off. So it was a bit of a shock, yeah. And that guy's a total legend, in my opinion, for how he's sussed all this stuff out. And I just watched a video of him. He took over the Glastonbury town hall and made all these councillors leave, and the police says, you've got the right to do it, and basically proved their point, because essentially the people have the right to these buildings, because we are the ones that appoint the Parliament and the monarchy. The monarchy is just a job. They've been brainwashed into thinking it's, families that just pass on to each other. But if they're not doing their job right and they're not upholding the Constitution, and the Queen's actually broke her oath in that and committed treason several times, and all these things are evidenced, So when
I think the Queen and fucking her husband, that Nick the Greek, whatever the fuck his name is, they bastards aren't they fucking human. There's no way on earth are they fuckers human.
Going back to the police thing, do you think this woman is aware of that? Do you think they are aware that they've got this other element in their
I think
body, or
I think that the level of anger she was showing
made
me think she was aware of what was happening.
Right, okay.
And I think it was just sort of losing the temper, which maybe caused the switch, if you know what I mean.
Aye, she lost control.
Because I think it takes a lot of control for them. I don't think it's maybe like a full physical sort of possession, if you like. It's maybe more of a sort of spiritual possession.
Okay.
That then sort of comes to the forefront just at that instant.
Not unconscious control most of the time then. It's just that's what basically the force that's operating through the police officer, their training and stuff, maybe it's made them susceptible to these kind of entities. That's what these rituals and that are for. Is to basically open the doorways and let these guys work through them. So
absolutely everything around us is a ritual.
Yeah.
Everything around us is a ritual. We even have our own little rituals. You get up in the morning and stick the kettle on or whatever. It's your own little ritual. But there's a lot of more really horrid rituals, like worshipping money. This stupid fucking piece of, well, it's not even paper anymore, you know what I mean?
Aye.
Just that you can't do anything without it.
Yep, it's so bad. And that's what the tool they're using right now to basically break everybody to get us on the so-called universal credit, all working for the government, everyone's serving a purpose, dream little society, all alphas and betas, Brave New World type.
Mm-hmm. You've got to go through the whole ritual of going to work, this little slave job, so as you can get this thing, so as you can buy dead food to barely bloody sustenance yourself. It's all ritual.
Yeah, it's just training. Training from the word go. Going to school is basically where it starts. Getting up in the morning, going somewhere, having the authority figure, giving your name, being registered, somebody telling you when you go for the toilet and all this kind of stuff. It's all basically training for the factories to train you to be the slave. And then when you die, we finish working, die as quickly as possible so we don't have to give you any more fictitious money and you might be happy for a while.
Aye. Save a fortune in their pensions and they can line their own pocket.
Aye. But when people talk about money and debt and all this stuff, I just can't get over the fact it's just all fiction, it's all just a computer screen. You can turn it up to 10 zillion, trillion, million. They're just printing it. What does it matter anyway? They just use it as a tool to get countries or people into debt so they can, therefore, control them.
That was what was it the Rothschild boy says it doesn't matter who, if you control the money, you control the country, basically.
Aye, he cares who's not in government, it's who controls the money, controls the country. Aye, basically we're in a fucking shitstorm right now, and if people didn't actually wake up, this is again the Article 61, to come back to that, it requires people to do a little bit of work and pay attention and look into these things, which I think could be a good thing, because people have to not only just watch YouTube videos and share them and say, come on, these other guys will sort it out for us, it'll be alright. If people take the responsibility themselves and begin to learn that they themselves have to power up for the new society so we can all contribute in it and stop being weak and subservient and willing to obey others, find out who they are. And
you can't sit about and wait for somebody else to save you like some fucking QAnon dipshit. You need to do it yourself.
Yeah. People say, okay, meditate and find God. That's a useful tool, but it's not basically to sit in your arse and trust the plan, essentially. It's who's making the plan.
Meditating and finding God is obviously you have more chance of meditating and finding yourself.
Which is part of you've got a connection to that word God has so many connotations to it, but the source. I like to think of, I guess when I took acid and stuff, it broke down kind of walls and you kind of see everything more connected and you're reading all Terence McKenna and whatever hippie ideas. But when you stop doing it, you still keep that kind of philosophy, and it did make me have a connection, which I think I always had actually, which is maybe why when I took it, just made it kind of mean, oh man, yeah, it's real. But when you're younger, I think I don't always seem to have a voice that kind of was guiding me a little bit. Do you have that sensation?
Well, I've been known to take acid in the past. It was some great experiences on that, but so I can definitely agree with what you're saying. But I think I've always, at some point, known that shit's wrong. There's something no right about this world or reality that we're living in.
People, I got hurt quite a lot when you're younger, You say, what's wrong with people? And that's... Then you learn not to trust people and hide your love. I got a Beatles album, the Red album, and I had the blue one. We were looking in the balconies. The red one was the early one, and the last kind of song in it was "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away." And I got that album. I was like 9 years old when I first set of albums at Christmas, and that was my favourite song. And that I had all the poppy stuff, but kind of even 9 years old, I was kind of drawn to that. This kind of sorrow.
Well, funny enough, the first album I ever remember buying, and I was maybe 8, 9 years old, was Iron Maiden's Live After Death.
All right, I know that one.
I just got it because I purely loved the cover. I couldn't say I'd heard the band before, but they blew me away, and I've been a fan since. But
I've seen it before.
This idea of live or live after death has sort of stuck with me all the way through my life, knowing that what we're experiencing here is only a tiny fraction of what there's still to experience.
I think this is, again, they don't want that knowledge getting out there because I'll have that idea, okay, we're going to die, but there'll be something else after it. But they're using the fear of death to get people to fucking kill themselves in their life in this time.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do this, you're all going to die because there's things coming to get you. Well, I'd rather fucking die than put up with this bullshit.
And there's people dying that have never really lived.
Aye. Well, exactly.
No. There's people dying that have never had a single original thought in their entire existence.
Aye. All the time. Not just because of COVID. Oh, said that shit.
That's a pound in the COVID jar now.
Aye, exactly. I'm sorry for a punchline. It's a fucking joke though, anyway. But anyway.
Oh, fuck aye. But anyway, sort of a wee sideline. My band,
Why?
part of a compilation album,
Uh-huh.
coming out through SOS Records. And just another wee aside, the guys behind SOS Records in the last 2 years have raised something like £22,000 for Diabetes UK. And hopefully this album, which is a fundraiser again for Diabetes UK, will add to that total and keep it going. I think the album official launch is at the end of the month. I think it's on the 30th. So anybody that's watching, you should go out and buy it and we'll get that total up.
But how do you go out and buy it? Is it not?
You know what I mean. Just
this is your cue to get the link up there and punt the link out, or?
Well, I don't think the link will be available to the end of the month.
It's on SOS. Have they got a website?
That they will have. You can search for them on Facebook.
Aye, SOS Records.
Oh,
right.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of the album?
The album's called The Road to Grunge Fest.
All right.
It's all the bands that were initially booked to play Grunge Fest this year. It was meant to be in August, but obviously everything got cancelled. It's been rescheduled for next year, so fingers crossed we can get back to gigs again. But some great bands on there. Obviously, there's myself, which is I go under the name As Bridges Burn. There's bands like Dogwatch, Godzoo, Four Below, Metatone, The Goat Boy, Wicked Sun, and the fantastic Battalion of Flies.
And when you say Grunge Fest, is this like metal, heavy rock, or like Pearl Jam, or is it?
It's kind of like, remember bands like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, all these kind of things. It's that kind of style.
And are they all Scottish bands?
I think they're all Scottish bands, at least for the most part. Aye.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, are you familiar with all these guys before? Are they quite popular on the scene?
I'm familiar with the work of Battalion of Flies. I remember their album from years ago. They're one of the bands that were actually out in the sort of mid-90s.
All right.
And they're still going. I'm another one of the kind of old farts, because I'm in my 40s now. I was sort of still there at the time. There's a couple of bands that are young lads that have always been inspired with the likes of Nirvana and Pearl Jam and stuff like that. And it's going to be great to get the chance to work with some of these guys.
Cool. Have you heard the rest of the album yet?
No, we're getting a sort of pre-release copy sent out or emailed out to us at some point. But we should get it quite soon.
Cool. Nice wee memento for you as well.
Mm-hmm. And we get to make a donation for the cause.
So, what was the particular cause again?
Diabetes UK.
So that's just a particular group?
Mm-hmm.
Aye, cool. So, obviously, my girlfriend Emma's got diabetes. She's got type 1. She's very particular about the difference, because everyone assumes that you've got diabetes because you ate too much sugar, but mainly type 2 can be developed, but it's different to type 1, which is can be caused by vaccine damage, for instance, and things like that.
There'll be a lot of talk about that V word coming out soon enough.
Aye. So anyway, it's a good cause, so well done for that. On your, what do you call it? Is it SoundCloud? Is that what it's called? You've got a page?
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, aye. You've got quite a lot of albums. I mean, how long have you been playing music? Were you in bands back in the day?
I was in bands back in the day, but the stuff on Bandcamp, that's all sort of more recent stuff. My old act, Lithema, and my newer stuff with This Bridges Burn. It goes from everything from nice wee acoustic stuff, quite gentle and melodic, to really brutal as fuck death metal.
So can people play that all for free, or do they have to download it on there?
They can stream it for free. There's some free downloads as well, and there's some paid downloads, but you can certainly stream it on that site for free.
And how do they find that?
The address is magners.bandcamp.com.
Right. Magners.bandcamp.com, folks. So, are there any other particular rabbit holes that's on your mind these days?
What's your idea and thoughts on the "they made us" way of looking at it? The likes of the Anunnaki or the Draco,
Aye.
and how they sort of tweaked with us and fucked with us, fucked with the original creation to make us what we are today.
Aye. Well, I think that's definitely. Well, I wasn't there. It's hard to know you. There's all these different people: Zachariah Stitchin, Michael Tazarian, various other people these days are talking about ancient history. So you hear different perspectives of these things. I've talked to Stephen D quite a lot as well, so he's got his opinions on it. I think that, like they say that Enki and Enlil, a lot of people say this. Stephen would say there's other creators, but these ones were recorded in this particular area. So Enki is the kind of one that wants to keep us as slaves, and Enlil was the one that he kind of made us. And the original Adam was like perfect, and we were more connected, had more DNA working 12 strands, and an awesome kind of spiritual being. But that wasn't going to serve the purpose of being slaves for the gold that the Anunnaki apparently need for their home planet Nibiru and their atmosphere there and stuff like that. And also they take the monatomic gold, which gets used in the pyramids, was kind of built for the water there to be purified and to use with the gold inside the chamber, the king's chamber. So that's why gold has kind of always been quite important. But anyway, yeah. So then we were dumbed down, and we've been the slaves there ever since. But I think there's that spark of us. Maybe I think there was a deal done that Enel kind of got 5% to kind of keep a kind of high portion of their spiritual entity side of it, and the rest of them are kind of more shut down just to be the slaves. So that kind of would be the artists and the creator types have maybe got that spirit. I'm just kind of, surmising what different people have said.
I've heard a lot about people claiming that it was a physical change. They were physically dicking about with us. But I think it was much more of an energetic fuck about to dumb us down and make us what we are.
Here before that they've maybe used that and somehow, because there's talks in some of the text about describes test tubes and stuff. It's like the created us in a test tube, and basically like they can do now with cloning essentially, or the claim some people claim they can do it. But yeah, there's definitely, I think, genetic, because there's even humans that had the longer skulls as well, and apparently some people say that it has the 8th chakra that we used to have, and so there's quite a few of them found around the place. And actually, Lord Rothschild's skull's a bit fucking long as well.
Well, fucking Mr. Burns out the Simpsons.
So basically, I think we were tampered with. I think we've been a slave species, and we've had different epochs, and basically it's all about us trying to overcome this evil that's hiding or wants to control us and feed off our energy and use us to be the slaves, because they didn't want to do the dirty work. So
exactly. As you say, that hide in plain sight is the old saying, and as you say, there's a lot of these bastards down places like the Getty, and they can fuck about with us on the surface, whether it be physically or energetically, and they can do it on a whim, because let's say 4D beings and 3D beings, completely different fucking entities altogether, totally different level of reality where none of the same rules apply. And when you have these sort of particularly evil bastards that want to fuck with you, they've got no remorse, and they've no real conscience. They've no sympathy, and they've no empathy. Yep. Basically, they do not give a fuck, and they want to control us.
Well, I look at the way we treat animals, and we just, the cattle, we just call it beef, because it's in the fridge in the supermarket, we just pick it up. Nobody gives a second thought that that's a sentient being. Yeah. So, do we actually have the right to complain about someone else treating us like cattle?
That's it. We'd have a fucking cheek to complain. I'm the world's worst vegetarian. I can go ages and ages. Eating meat doesn't even pop into my head. But I mean, earlier I had a bacon roll.
I was just going to say bacon sandwich,
it's one of the things, if I want to have it, I'll have it. You know what I mean? But
yeah, maybe your body's craving it for whatever reason, and C'est la vie. I'd
Maybe.
be that way myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to be too rigid in basically a belief system, you know?
Our belief systems, again, just goes back to ritual. It's all ritual and repetition.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what your belief system is. I think they all eventually lead to the same thing. You see, it doesn't matter if you go to church or the synagogue or for wherever. These things that are worshipped as God are the evil entities.
Yeah.
People get in there in good faith, for want of a better way of putting it, believing that they're worshipping their creator, when in fact they're worshipping the opposite. They're
Yep.
worshipping the evil.
Aye. Yeah, I agree. I done a 10-day retreat in London with Buddhists, a Buddhist retreat, and some quite crazy things happened there. But at the end of it, I had a kind of bad feeling from it. It's like, this isn't, because I thought it was just about the mind and stuff, and then I kind of realised it's just a religion, and we're worshipping this guru guy, and who are these fucking guys? They've got these pictures on the walls and stuff, and you're all meditating to this. It's like, well, where's that energy going, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit foreign to you, you know? It's all right getting a wee interest, but it's like Tibet coming at you. It's like, fucking, I don't understand that culture, you know? So why am I kind of... And it turned out, actually, the guy who was running it, he wrote a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, so I was studying it in Edinburgh, then I went down to London to do the retreat with some of the folk there. So we had a picture of him, and we used to meditate on his picture. It turns out years later I discovered he was a sex pest for quite a lot of the hangers-on, which quite a few of these guys are, you know? They've kind of got that dark shadow. They're all loving light in the thing, but ultimately they've got this evil or whatever.
So all that energy's got to go somewhere. I see a comment there. Found human DNA in various McDonald's. I've actually seen a couple of short documentaries on that. I think I'll probably find them floating about YouTube. My opinion on that is these motherfuckers are laughing at us. Because here's something that you ask yourself when it comes to that. Where do all the missing children end up?
Well, it's funny, I watched Soylent Green the other night with Emma. You seen that movie?
No, for ages.
Well, basically, that's the theme of that movie is people are eating people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, all those millions and millions of kids every year that go missing, never to be seen again, those bodies have got to be disposed of.
Exactly, yeah.
And you would need a massive worldwide network in order to do that.
It's a very good point.
And something along the lines of McDonald's, I'm not saying it's McDonald's that's doing it, but something along those lines that could grind up the meat and laugh at you while you're eating it.
Well, these mince pies, you know, fucking hell. What's in those things?
They're fucking eyelids and assholes and stuff that are swept up under the fridge.
Just as long as you've got enough fucking HP brown sauce in it, it'll go down all right. The Iron Brew, wash it down. Good Scottish diet.
That's been fucking rotten for they changed the recipe, that stuff.
Are you one of these people that give a fuck about that?
Well, not really. It was just I tried it because, you know, I fell for the advert, you know.
Do you like the old one?
I did. I like the old one more as a hangover cure, you know. I've been known to imbibe, as people fucking out there know.
So, you had shares in Iron Brew?
Pretty much, yeah. I could have fucking bought a house if I didn't go buying all that stuff, you know.
It's funny though, this virus thing, just to touch on it, it's making us pay more attention to our health though. I think that's been quite a good thing because I'm learning quite a lot about when you do go in a supermarket, how much shite is in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's one thing I did like from one of your interviews with Charlie Freak was all the food in there is dead.
Aye.
Even the fresh fruit and veg.
Yep.
Because they're picked far too early, they're wrapped up in plastic, they're fucking shipped about the world. And
genetically modified.
Aye, fucking fish DNA in your tomatoes.
Not good soil they've been grown in, so they're not organic. So you're not getting minerals in them.
Pumped full of every chemical and fucking toxic shit you can think of.
That was part of the reason why I went to Turkey. I remember I was going to Tesco's and I was getting these bananas. It was like plastic. I went to Jamaica. I was like, "Wow, you got real fruit," and then Turkey had the fresh fruit bazaars, you know. And I was like, "Fucking give me some of those decent food," because these tomatoes, you cut up a tomato and you bite it, and it's like, "What is that?" You know.
It's just like crunchy water up, you know.
Aye. So we're turning into fucking the two guys on the Muppets again.
I can't beat a good rant though.
Aye. Oh, fucking hell. If I wasn't for ranting, I'd have jumped off a bridge a long time ago. Uh, it's part of the ritual of cannibals consume human remains, yeah. What was
Mm-hmm.
the one? The skulls have no saturs. Do you know what that
Sutures.
sutures? Do you know what that is?
I think is it the sort of bits you can see in the skull where you can almost see the join, if you know
Right.
what I mean.
Okay.
I think it may be that. I feel they'll correct us if I'm
That's
wrong
good
with
check.
that.
Aye. Aye. So what else is on your mind? How's work going these days for you?
Well, I'm back up at that site. It's a 3/4 of an acre site up the law in Dundee. We've planted a big orchard. We got a bumper apple crop this year, which is absolutely fantastic. I've still got some in my fridge.
All right.
100% organic.
Awesome.
No, well, no fucking about up there.
Aye. They
We've
become
got
inside just shortly.
a good idea, maybe a wee side project up there. But it's going to be a big community garden. We've still got a lot of work to finish up there. You know, that's a lot of bloody work to finish up there. But work itself's going fine, even though the actual side of working with offenders, their numbers have been dropping. You know, there's a lot of them not
Right.
arriving, claiming the current situation, but it's not surprising. So we've been doing the job ourselves.
All right.
Just keep.
Okay. Keep,
I've no idea what kind of community groups might be taking over the site once we're completed. It might be areas there for schools. We'll start to build an outdoor classroom up there, which should be good. Yeah, it's taking shape. It's
that's,
taking shape, and it's kind of good to give back to the local community.
that sounds good. When you're doing something that's practical and useful, you feel better about yourself.
Mhm.
I sent you the article that Steve Walker. Sorry, Steve, I never had time to reply to you. I had a brief look at it. Yeah, no surprise for folks that don't know. Basically, they're trying to ban in the growing of food in New Zealand. You know, as you would. Fucking, what do humans need to grow food for?
I haven't had the chance to read through it myself because you sent me earlier, but I'll go through that. But it's the level of insanity that we're living in.
Aye,
I mean, it was a great example. The bastards at my work, right? They turned off the drinking water, the
all
very
right.
stuff you need to live.
Why?
They
Because
claimed
people are going down and doing that.
no, it was a press button thing. It was all
All right.
chilled and filtered. They turned it all off,
We're closing toilets and stuff in supermarkets. You know, people need to pee. What the fuck?
and then they'll lift you for taking a piss in the car park.
Aye, aye, it's fucking it is pure insane. It's just, but it's I don't. It's just that other people who are not looking at it, and you get abuse. The amount of abuse I take is fucking unbelievable. That's I had somebody come on Facebook and just say, "I used to have respect for you, and fucking shame on you." Basically, I said, "What the fuck are you? Fucking say that?" And you obviously are fucking ignorant, so please leave me alone.
I mean, I've been called every fucking name under the sun. One of my favourites was been called, "You're a fucking David Icke bastard." Right.
That'll never be topped.
The same guy told me to get out and jump in front of a bus.
Aye, aye, aye. They're claiming that they're peace and love, these folk, but they're actually fucking quite nasty.
Well, they're the complete opposite, aye. I mean, but everything's inverted. The whole fucking reality that we're living in is inverted, you know? I mean, there's people out there that think this is air we're breathing. You
Aye,
know, there's still people out there that believe sunlight and daylight are two different things. You
aye,
know, one's a cause and the other's an effect.
yep,
You know, the light comes for the fiery ball. It comes in through the atmosphere and the photons react with the fucking particles in the, what do you call it, the noble gases, as it were, things like your argon, your ozone, all these kind of things, and that's what actually causes the daylight. You know, but people go, oh, it's just the sun.
aye. So, what's your view on flat Earth then? Have you got,
I think it could be flat,
aye,
could be a globe, it could be part of a giant ice fucking globe, it could be fucking anything, it could be hollow, it could be, I mean, the hollow Earth works just as well on the flat Earth model.
aye.
I mean, you can have them stacked up like fucking LPs, and I know I'm showing my age with that LPs, but you know,
CDs or MP3s, files on your MP3 media player.
and you could have, let's say, as well, a CD or a fucking LP, you maybe have an access point in the centre, which would have been the North Pole. You could have access points round and under at the South Pole. mean, the hollow Earth works just as well, saying with a flat Earth model. But is
Well,
it flat? Fuck
yeah,
knows.
that's saying until you actually go up and see it and you say, all right, okay, it's round. How do you actually know? To me, it appears flat, but I've asked Stephen a couple of times, Stephen D. He says it's round. He knows a lot about that shit, but to me,
I liked his explanation using what was the term of measurement he used? Was it a fringe of
that's
light or something like that?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, he was saying that water, if you put it, actually does have a slight curve, because Stephen used to be an optics expert, so he knows what flat is, he's saying, right? So water does have a slight curve. So if you imagine the whole Earth just has this one fringe going down, then in theory it just goes rounding itself like that. Because you ask yourself how they claim though it's like 1,000 miles per hour spinning ball, and fucking water should be going flying off. Especially like they say gravity is holding everything down, but you get a helium balloon which is light that goes up. So to me, it's like density matters.
Gravity's a bit like germ theory, in as much as it's never really been proven.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, if you fart in the bath, it goes up. You know what I mean?
Gravity's not holding that down.
Tiny wee butterfly can just do its thing.
Yeah, so it is one of these things. We do get even the globe itself from the classroom at an early age is just like taken as gospel, you know.
Aye, and if you turn them upside down, it says is it not to be used as an educational tool or something like that? There's some wee sticker on most globes that says something like that.
All right, there you go. They've always got to cover their ass somehow.
Oh fuck aye. The masters at covering their ass. Well, fucking leather and oils.
Aye, and worse.
Aye, lot fucking worse. Fucking baby eating fucking paedophile bastards.
Aye.
But again, going back to the standing under love. Says even with the worst of these fucking people and creatures and entities, you need to learn forgiveness. And I think that's what Stephen D. Kelly said really well in one of the last interviews with him. And it's so fucking true. You can't just get and want to behead these cunts. Ultimately, it's love and togetherness and harmony that's going to sort this fucking shite show out.
Well, if you think about it, if you want to go and do that to them, then we're just like them.
Aye, you're just as bad then, and it doesn't sort anything.
Aye. We want to put an end to any fucking, stuff that shouldn't be going on, basically. And it's scary, so many stories about horror stories. I heard one guy talk about how he was at Jimmy Savile and 6 other guys were gang raping him and he was made to eat his own shite. Which is fucking pretty bad.
Fuck's sake.
Aye. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, there's deep, dark rabbit holes that I'm sure most of the folk watching are well aware of.
I'm sure we're preaching to the perverted.
What was I saying here? Somebody saying, Dove. I got interviewed recently by a guy called Harry. His Globe, John Smith Globe Lie is his YouTube channel. And when I was talking about flat Earth, he actually showed that video of the balloon that's up really high, and it looks around and like it's a flat horizon everywhere,
Mm-hmm. That's just because they didn't use a GoPro camera, which automatically puts a curve on everything, isn't it?
Aye, that's it, the old fisheye thing. So
see that there, and the sun, the shade is cooler. When the moon comes out, the shade is warmer. Because the moon is a luminary in itself.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know,
moonlight, we call it. It's in our face.
Mm-hmm.
If you actually look at it and just observe it, there's obviously light coming from it. It's not fucking bouncing off the sun for God knows where,
Especially if it's meant to be the other side of a spinning ball.
Aye. And again, when you see, like I got in video, I was watching a video just by chance the other night. It had the moon that had it was a crescent moon of some sort, and then it had the sun. But then they tell you that the Earth is what causes the shadow. But if the moon's there and the sun's there, then how can the Earth's not in the middle of that?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of theory was breaking down.
A good guy for flat Earth information is a guy called Nathan Thompson.
Okay.
He's just had his Facebook group taken down, I believe. He had close to about 150,000 members in that group.
All right.
And he has the sort of Christian belief in flat Earth through creation.
Aye.
And how the Bible says it's flat, and he also says that science states it's flat. And he's actually got some good work out there, but whether it's real, whether it isn't, fuck knows. Best guess wins, you know what I mean?
Nathan what?
Nathan Thompson.
Thompson, aye.
It's an American boy.
Okay, maybe worth checking out, folks, if you're interested in that. There's so many things that is part of this jigsaw that basically it seems to be our kind of destiny to live through. I don't know if we're going to unravel it. I don't know if we actually think we're in control in it, or we think we've got a say in it, or it's just going to unravel and shit. We think of that as like predestined, all this stuff. Do you think it's like we're living out a script, or do you think we can actually take a hold of this? And if we do take hold of it, is that just part of the script? You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I mean, there's certainly a lot of this stuff has been planned out fucking way back. Hundreds of years, some cases, maybe even thousands, because the likes of you and I, we've got fucking no clue what's under the Getty. We've never experienced it. These fucking entities could have had made plans fucking for millions of years that's acting out slowly, and part of that could be a rebellion against them. It's all orchestrated.
Yeah. Yep. Who knows, man? It's interesting to chat to you. So you got anything to say before we wrap up? Any last thoughts?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me again, Billy, and thanks to everybody for watching.
Okay. So just to remind Steve, magners.bandcamp.com for your music.
Yeah.
And SOS Records.
SOS Records for the charity fundraiser for Diabetes UK.
And your YouTube channel?
Piston Broke Entertainment.
Okay. Thanks very much, Stephen. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed our chat. Catch you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.